Hello and welcome to the Trevor Roberts Talkfest podcast. Let me get everything in order here. Get my coffee, get my microphone. Right. So tonight's episode is actually coming to you a little bit behind schedule. Let's see. All right, I think we're all set. This week was wild for me at work. I was all over the place. I was on the road. I was every single day was like waking up at 6 a.m. Um, prep work meetings, all in person, and then like taking notes and sending thank yous, and then on the road, next hotel. It was just nonstop. And I was trying to like find time to watch The Bachelor and then make some notes, and it was like I was staying up until like 1 a.m. just to get my work done, and then getting up at early. And anyway, nobody cares, but that's why I'm just doing it now. So what's kind of nice though for this week is that I've watched the episode twice, and I've listened to the Your Mom and Dad podcast, so I've got to hear what they thought about the episode. And Jess and Evan had some really interesting insights, some things that I hadn't thought about. So I'm excited to jump into it and talk about it. I don't know that I'll need as much time as I normally do, but maybe I will. I mean, I'm certainly here for it and not trying to cut out early. It's just I feel like my thoughts are really there, and who knows? Maybe we'll go way longer than normal, and maybe we won't. But um, also with the Fantasy Suite episode, it's like three one-on-ones, and there's just not as much I feel like to talk about. Next week, I think there will be a ton with the women tell all, figuring out what Kelsey said on that note, and then the next weeks after that, there could be a lot too. So we'll start off with Rachel. They're in Tulum, Mexico, and I don't know how many times they've done The Bachelor Tulum, but I definitely know of one because Rachel and wow, I can't even think of her name. Was it like Beck? Was it well, I can't think of her name, but maybe it was Becca. No, I don't think it's Becca, but the girl that Rachel did her when they had like the two bachelorettes. The other girl definitely was doing this jumping thing that Rachel had to do. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So Susan from the Golden Bachelor visits with Rachel, and they've kind of done a really fun thing this season with Joey where they've like we've seen a little bit of the Golden Bachelor people coming on. And then also after one of the episodes when I was like writing down my notes and thinking about what I wanted to say, the next episode just kind of went right into it, and it was the Golden Bachelor wedding. And I got to meet Gary because I haven't seen the Golden Bachelor, so that was really cool. I got to meet Gary. I got to see who he picked. They were having the wedding, and that was just like really fun. And then on this episode, we got to meet Susan, Leslie, and Sandra, and it was really fun seeing them. I thought that I would hate the Golden Bachelor. Uh, it's just, I don't know, it just isn't my thing. I didn't think I would be into it. And then I was really surprised by meeting the three women throughout this episode and just hearing their conversations and how mature they are and how different they are and how they see things, but yet they're still fun. I loved it. So maybe I'll give it a try. And I do think that they do a good job with this franchise of intermingling like Bachelor, Bachelorette, Bachelor in Paradise. And it might be that if you don't watch all of it, you're kind of left out. That being said, I mean, I'm not going to watch it just to be included. Like, maybe I'll try season two, And if it's good, or season, I'm sure they'll do season 1 of the Golden Bachelorette, and maybe I'll try that. I don't know. I don't know. We'll have to see. I mean, I'm sure Jesse Palmer will be on it and I'll like that. I just don't think I'll like it. But anyway, so Susan from the Golden Bachelor visits with Rachel. Rachel says that the whole thing has been a dream come true. Susan encourages Rachel to just come out and say it. Say you're in love with him, because Rachel, you could tell that Rachel was feeling it, but she'd been a little bit more guarded. She was protecting herself, protecting her feelings. She'd been cheated on in the past. And in a way, this isn't cheating, but this kind of makes you feel like you're being cheated on because it's fantasy suite week and we all know what we signed up for here. So he's probably going to be physical with all three women. I note they noticeably didn't talk about that at all the whole episode. And I found it really interesting that we never got like the sex talk. We never had any hints about it. No one jokes about it. No one, like, none of the women complain about him having sex with other women. Even when Joey gets the note from Kelsey that says we need to talk, and Joey's like, I have no idea what it could be about. It's obvious that he's not at all worried about that. Even though he doesn't know what it's about, he definitely doesn't even hint at that. So I thought that that was interesting, and I didn't know if that was Joey explicitly saying he didn't want that to be a topic, or if the show's just kind of like, okay, we've done that bit enough, we don't need to go down that road. But it was really interesting. Now, the closest they got to it was when Rachel was just talking about how she'd been cheated on in the past. And really, that was just, I think, genuine to how Rachel feels. I don't know that she was trying to compare it to Fantasy Suite Week, even though I was seeing it that way. I think she just feels like she's been cheated on in the past, and it was hard for her to open up about it. Um, it was good advice from Susan to hear. I mean, you should open up about it. We hear Rachel say that she's nervous, that she feels like men pick other women over her. And so she's just scared of that she's down to the last three. She's going to get hurt. If she just comes out and says she's in love with him, that's going to open her feelings up to getting hurt. But at the same time, she's going to choose to just do it anyway, which is really cool. And I think that that's what you have to do when you're in this position. So we see him go to the thing where they're going to jump into the water, and Joey was pretty cool about it. They start from the beginning. Um, I also felt like he was in a way like very subtly, very assertive. Like, um, all right, here we go, 1, 2, 3, and then he just goes for it. But she must not have. It looked like the way she jumped, she kind of timed it so that when her it was almost like a slap with with some leverage where her water, like her feet, like hit the water and it sort of pulls her forward, and then she ends up, not like she belly flops, but the way her body angles when her head hits the water, nothing broke that water seal. You almost want to jump leaning back so that when you land, it's like, if you could, you just come into the water straight up and down, but you're going to be coming forward a little bit. And if you're coming forward a little bit because you're jumping forward, you want to make sure that you're leaning back so when your face hits the water, it's being though that water's been broken up. If you've ever seen, like, there's a guy on TikTok, Instagram Reels, whatever, and he's going for like the highest jump ever for the Guinness Book of World Records, and he's like jumping off of a cliff, and he's going to go into still water down at the bottom, right? And before he jumps, he just launches like this big rock that, and he does it, and then he jumps after the rock because the rock's going to hit the water and cause it to like be moving a little bit. After a certain point, when you're jumping into water and the water's perfectly still, They say that it could be worse than jumping onto concrete for some reason. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but I definitely think that the way it looked like her face hit water that was not broken by her feet. Anyway, like she comes out of there and her face is obviously messed up and she can't move it at first. It's like must be clicking. She might have dislocated her jaw, but she can't move it. And I felt like Joey didn't quite get it at first. Eventually he does. He's like, "No, we need to check on this." But you never know how much of that is Joey and how much of that is the coaching or the medical people being like, "No, this is real." And then the knowledge that you're being recorded and filmed and it's like, "Oh, well, I better act like this is a big deal." Not to say that Joey wouldn't, because he seems like a perfectly stand-up guy, and he probably cared a lot, but I just don't think he thought it was as big a deal at first, which I might not have either. I mean, who knows? I'm sure. And then Rachel's in that position where um, she feels terrible because, like if you've ever had big plans with someone, and big plans, big events like the fantasy suite lead to big expectations. And if anything goes awry, and instead of doing your beautiful date that you're supposed to be doing, you're in a hospital, it feels like those expectations aren't being met. It's a big disappointment. You feel awkward and uncomfortable. Joey says he understands and nothing changes how he's going to feel this week. He appreciates her. And what was really cool about the moment is um, she ends up opening up and she allows herself to cry with Joey. He says he understands how hard the week is. And then she has an eyelash, and Joey catches that and lets her make a wish, which was super cool. Rachel ends up saying yes to the fantasy suite. They love the overnight. She told him she is in love with him, and Rachel and Joey said he was really glad to hear that. It felt like it might have been too little, too late to me, though. And we never know what Kelsey's note is going to say, and we don't know if they're over dramatizing that note situation. To me, though, it just felt like Rachel's date didn't, like, nothing really wasn't good about it, other than it got cut short and they had to go to the hospital. But they still got to go and do the fun part. They still got to jump into the water, even though they didn't jump off the very top. Then they still got to be together at the hospital, and they got to go through something unexpected together and help each other. And she became emotional, which is something that needed to happen. And then she um like allowed herself to be vulnerable. Then they have the overnight, and that's like all night. We don't see it, but they get to cut off the cameras at a certain time and then pick back up in the morning, but they get all night to talk. And it didn't feel hot and steamy. It felt like more of like they just weren't there yet, because when I say too little too late, I'm really focusing on the too late part. I don't know that they wouldn't have been able to get there in real life. And Joey even made a comment like he feels like a life with Rachel could be amazing. And I'm sure that he really does feel like that. I just think that like he's dating three women, not just Rachel, and Rachel's not as far along as the other two women. And I think that that ultimately is gonna get her to not make it to the next round. So it's probably gonna be her going home, unless Kelsey takes herself out of it, which I don't think she will. So I do think Rachel will go home. Um, I don't know that that's probably the end of Rachel though. She's probably going to be on Bachelor in Paradise, and I think that it's still going to be pretty hard for her because she says she feels like men choose other women over her. There was 32 women on The Bachelor. It may have been the most ever if I remember right. And she's getting picked third essentially. Maria had a huge personality. I mean, Joey and Jen had a big connection. Joey and Lexi had a big connection. Um, I just feel like there was a lot of amazing women on the show, and she's got picked over all of them. Only one person that makes it to the end. I mean, let's say it goes to Kelsey A and Daisy. One of them's not going to get picked. Is that person going to feel like men always choose other women over them? I don't know. It's like, it's hard to feel bad for her, but at the same time, I don't think she's going to get picked. And I do think she's going to feel like Joey picked other women over her, and it's like, again, she just had an amazing, we got to know her, we got to know her family. She's a very real, genuine person. I do feel like a life with Rachel would be amazing. And so I hope she isn't totally, um, devastated if she doesn't get picked. But I do think we can move on to Kelsey. So let's see. So Kelsey A, she gets to have a conversation with Leslie from the Golden Bachelor. Leslie lost her mom young in life as well, and I don't know. Sorry, I just like got emotional, but I don't know if since I didn't watch the Golden Bachelor, I don't know if they put Leslie with Kelsey A because of the fact that they both lost their mom, like Kelsey A lost her mom too, or if it was because they. I mean, the gist I'm getting is that Leslie. This is kind of from your mom and dad podcast too. Like they really touched on. They knew that Leslie was going to do this, and they did watch it. So I think that the gist is that Leslie is like scorn from by Gary. Gary must have said, I love you. Gary must have made her feel like she was definitely the one. She didn't hold back her feelings. She was 100% confident. She says she knew it was going to be her. And that's based on what Gary told her, which you have to think she must have made it to the fantasy suites. And Gary said, You're the one. I love you, whatever. And then it wasn't her. And I guess she was crushed by it. And even though she says a lot of stuff, she says, be present. I thought that was great. Like people need to be more present all the time in life. Be focused on each other. And then she says she went into the last day confident because of things he said, and then she didn't get chosen. And she wished she wouldn't have felt so confident. She was devastated. She's like, always have something in the back of your head. And this is where Evan was like, you have to save part of yourself so you can rebuild after you're crushed. And if you've ever been crushed, it sucks. And so I don't think it's not like it's not bad advice or not good advice, cuz like you do it would be helpful if someone could convince you to save part of yourself and so you can rebuild, not be crushed. But at the same time, like that's just not how love works. And so I don't really think that that's what you do. Like, I don't know. And also, it's terrible timing to tell someone that. If you're coming on The Bachelor and you make it to top three, like, if you don't make it to top three, you make it to top five, you might be a little sad. But I do think if you make it to hometowns and they come and meet your family, there's a good chance you might be crushed. Like, you make it to top three, you're kind of signing up to get crushed. Like, two of the three are going to be crushed, you know? And you kind of just have to go all in. People actually get married from this show and have families and make it forever and continue on and do like really cool things with their life that are in the public, and it's sort of what they wanted. Like that's why they went on the show. So if you are hoping for that or wanting that, you want the real shot at love, then you always are going to have to put yourself out there. And there is always the chance that it doesn't work out. It's just that people usually get the sense of like they're dating only one person. And in this case, it is scarier because, like, there's a legitimate shot they're going to pick somebody else over you. But still, like, I think that that's not the advice I would have given. And I wouldn't have wanted that advice. Um, But anyway, oh yeah, and then after Leslie, or what is her name? Yeah, Leslie. After Leslie says this to Kelsey A, they just keep giving us shots of Kelsey A's face, and it looks like she's just that you like see her face like looking so like she's processing, and her eyes are just like blinking, looking back and forth, and you can just see the processing of this like, oh my god, I could be just devastated. It's coming across her, and it's like how real that is. And you hear Leslie be like, I was 100% confident it was me, and then I was devastated. And you're just like, oh my god, how scary is that? But then, okay, so then she goes on the date. Joey says it's the small things with Kelsey A. He feels joyful around her. He asks her, would you like a house on the water? And Evan and Jess were definitely laughing at this because, of course, everyone wants a house on the water. And, who's going to say no to that? And then she says, I live in New Orleans. I kind of got the vibe that Joey doesn't want to move to New Orleans. And so I think that's a real thing. I don't know how much they've talked about it, but it doesn't seem like he's moving there. Um, I love Kelsey's reaction. She sees the turtles and the stingrays and she's like losing her mind, super excited for it. She tells Joey about the conversation with Leslie, and Joey says he felt like it was 100% him and that he was crushed. Um, and you just look at her, she looks so full of emotion, and she has the perfect response, and it's all about him. Like, I hope you find what you're looking for, and if you do, it's going to be so great in the end. She just seems like such a genuinely good person. But at the same time, we know that later on in the episode, she writes the letter. And I do think it probably didn't help her because Leslie's saying she thought it was 100% her and it wasn't. And then Joey's saying he thought it was 100% him and it wasn't. And so it's just two people that she probably looks like, sees herself in a little bit. It's like, oh wow, this is actually like this happens to people. And then you start to think like maybe not both Rachel and Daisy, but if you're Kelsey, you're thinking, well, at least one of them has to feel like they're just as confident as me. Um, you just have to think that. Like, you can't, unless Joey is saying, you're the real one. Like, and you would know from, you just had your fantasy suite. So you got that no camera one on one time all night. So you would probably say, like, how confident are you in the other relationships? Or, the way you feel with me, do you feel anything like that? You could even ask, like, you don't have to say who, you don't have to say, you don't have to make me feel like I'm the only, like, it's definitely me, but can you give me a sense of, like, do you feel super strong with the other relationships or not really? And like, if they're like, oh yeah, I definitely, it's tough. Three strong relationships. Then that kind of tells you a lot. And I don't know. I just think like it didn't help her for Joey to just say, "Oh yeah, the whole thing with Charity," because it just reinforces that this could happen to her. Um, but then he says he hasn't had a doubt. He's falling fully in love with her. He doesn't want to hold it back anymore. He doubles down and he's like, I'm falling in love with you. He knows how real it is. She says she's on top of the world. Then in the morning, they're making out on countertops. Love feels so clear. He feels confident he's falling in love. They have hot and steamy makeout sessions. And again, we hear him the night before and in the moment. interviews, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm falling in love with her." Then in the next morning, totally different time, 12 hours later, he's saying it to her again. And Evan and Jess really talked about this, and I feel the same way. When I watched the episode, I did not think he was going to say it to Daisy, because Leslie had just really drilled in her head what Gary. It seems like what Gary did is Gary must have told multiple women he loved them, and Leslie felt like because of whatever it was that Gary said, she was going to be picked, and then she wasn't. So, and it definitely seems like Joey knows that. Like, I got the vibe that Joey had seen it. So then for him to say that he loved her, and like how much he said it, he didn't just say it a little bit. He wasn't like, "Yeah, I'm falling in love with you too." Like, you know what? I really can start to feel myself falling for you too. No, he didn't say it like that. He says, he like makes it crystal clear that he's felt like this for a long time, and he's falling in love fully, and he doesn't want to hold back, and he's not gonna hold back, and he knows how real it is. And then the next day he says it again. This love feels so clear, and I feel so confident that I'm falling in love with you. There's no doubt about that. And so if I found out rewatching the show back, basically said the exact same thing to Daisy and then picked Daisy, oh yeah, I'd be like the next Leslie. I'd be like freaking pissed. Um, and so I definitely relate. I definitely know what, like, why that's a big deal. Okay, so then we go to Daisy. Daisy's visiting with Sandra, and there's a point where Daisy's like, Sandra from the Golden, this woman I've never met before. Like, it definitely comes across like she has no clue. Like, she's like me. She didn't watch the Golden Bachelor. She doesn't know who Sandra is. She doesn't know Sandra's story. Um, it seems like they just told her, like, yeah, this woman from the Golden Bachelor is gonna talk to you. And she was like, oh great. This, you know, woman that's a lot older than me. I don't know. It's kind of funny. But um Daisy tells Sandra that she was falling in love. Joey says he feels the same way, and you hear Sandra like clarify, like, okay, he said I'm feeling the same way, meaning he didn't say that he loved you back. But Sandra says, don't worry about that. Just be open. Don't be afraid to talk with Joey. But don't just talk with him. Maybe make it sexual. And this comes out of left field. It's like, she says, maybe say something like, let's practice making babies. And it's very it's funny, but at the same time, I didn't see it coming. And maybe that was like who Sandra was on the show, but it was like you got a few minutes of actual wisdom, and then you got, and also another method is just like sex it up a little bit. And then when Joey and Daisy meet up to start off their date, she like stops him and puts a big kiss on him. And it really just felt like Daisy can take some advice. And I remember thinking all throughout the series, Daisy has just been making these moves. Not as big as like some of the other people where she's all moves. Like, she was able to be somewhat moved, somewhat real. And then there's the vulnerability with the cochlear implant and her like story and how like real it is. Um, but she's also got like moves, and I've already seen her doing a lot on social media. So I don't know. It just makes me think that everything is strategically planned, but at the same time, like, not that that's a bad thing. I just think that maybe she's just like really smart and knows what she's doing. Kind of takes away from the love for me. Doesn't take away any respect. Like, I think she's killing it. I just don't. I'm just like, as a viewer, I'm trying to figure out, is she in it for real? I think she does have real feelings for him. Um, I think I could be surprised. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I do think that Kelsey A is the front runner, and so I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of like just assuming she gets second place. I really think it's going to be Kelsey A, Daisy, and Rachel. Um, does that mean she might be the Bachelorette? I don't know. I do think like Evan and Jess are convinced that no one's going to get picked because of like little viewing that we get at the ending scene. And I really don't think that's right. I think somebody will get picked. I just think something's going to happen that hasn't happened before. And I think maybe like he has to walk off for a little bit. Maybe he has to like regroup. Maybe it has to occur the next day. I think something is going to happen that's going to cause there to be like, it doesn't go according to plan, but yet he's still going to get together with one of them. And I think it's going to be Kelsey A. And I think Daisy's probably going to be the next Bachelorette. They do get an ATV ride. Looked awesome. She misses him. She wants to tell Joey about things when she's doing them in the moment. Um, that's so real. Like when you're really falling in love with someone, all you want to do is like call them and talk to them all the time. If you do anything fun, you want to tell them. If you do something new and different, exciting, you just like want to share it with them. And so that did feel really real. And I remember thinking that in the moment, like that's just one of the most real things you can say. And it didn't seem like she just made that up. Like that just felt like something that came to her in the moment. Um, Joey gives her like a "Don't look at me like that," which is definitely a Joey move. Then they take a shower together. Um, I felt like their date was very hot and steamy. Then we get the dinner portion of the date. She says she feels like Joey's emotionally available. She's like kind of sharing a story of a past relationship where the guy felt like she was overreacting. It wasn't really here to hear out her feelings. And Joey shares how he might have been similar to that guy in the past, but he learned a lot from it. And Daisy just feels like a lot of emotion comes over her, and she's feeling very grateful for him. Um, they have a sexy morning in bed the next day, and I just felt like her um her experience was very hot and steamy. Joey says that he's falling in love with her too. That seems like a big deal. This is like the thing I wasn't expecting is he says I'm falling in love with you as well. It might have been a touch less than Kelsey A's, but it was very much like I'm the same. It had the same pattern to it. It was like I felt it for a while. I've been holding back. I don't want to keep holding back. I'm letting you know I'm falling in love with you, and I've been falling in love with you. And so it was like the same exact formula. And now I feel like one of them is set up to be crushed because um, I just think that it's like you're about to go and hook up in the fantasy suite. You know that they're probably hooking up in the fantasy suite with at least one, maybe both of the other people. But you're the only one getting the I love you speech. And it feels very like it's different and it's made for you and it's like um I also feel like Joey kind of hinted at like he hasn't said it to anyone. So you have to think that if he's saying it to you now for the first time and he hasn't said it to anyone, there's a chance he said it to the other women right before their fantasy suite, but that seems pretty lame. Not like something Joey would do. Also, he would only do it if he really felt it. You have to think there's a pretty good shot that you're the only one he's saying it to. And then you find out you're not. It's just like, I don't know. It just seems pretty brutal. And I do think that one of them's going to be very sad. I'm looking forward to next week's episode. We got the women tell all. Hopefully, we're going to get some Jesse Palmer. He wasn't in this episode except for the little love notes. And then I'm very excited to find out what's in Kelsey's one in her love note and what's going to be on the next. What's the season finale? Like, I know Joey says I don't know if this has ever happened before. I think it's just like the only reason I'm a little bit skeptical is every season I've watched, they like to say that something happens that's never happened before. And so I feel like at a certain point it like doesn't have to be anything big. It just has to be something that hasn't happened before. And Joey is just the kind of guy that isn't single in my mind. Like one of them's going to want to be with him. And if even if it doesn't happen officially on the show, like he would be with one of them in real life today or he would be with somebody today. So, that's my take. All right. Thank you for watching. Thanks for tuning in with me. Sorry this is coming out late. Have a good night.